Life in the Big City was the first thing that I ever had published. First in a local newspaper in Chicago, then another local newspaper, and then finally in book form, which you see right here. This is a book that I self-published and I still sell on my website, and it collects the first, I should say, it collects some of my favorite Life in the Big City strips. Life is a story about a couple of friends named Marcus and Quentin, and they live in this imaginary city that could be any city. Marcus is a more clean-cut, conservative guy, and Quentin is kind of a free spirit, kind of a wild and crazy guy. I remember being so excited that just for the fact that anyone wanted my comic strip in their newspaper. I didn't even ask for anything, and nothing was given, but it was just good enough for me just to see it in print. The strips were always weekly, which was great for me because it gave me I didn't have much of a backlog of strips drawn up at the time, so I would pretty much just be inspired every week to come up with a new idea for a strip. So I would just physically bring in a photocopy of this week's strip to the newspaper, and sometimes I would give them a couple of weeks in advance if I was really on the ball, but usually it would just be off the cuff, kind of like, whatever topic was on my mind that week, I would do a strip about that and drop it off at the newspaper, and it was almost like being in the newspaper business for me. So at one point I added more characters to the rotation of the strip. Marcus had a sister, or I added a sister. Her name was Vanetta, and Vanetta was Marcus's slightly older sister, and she had a son named Sean. She was a single mother. I added some other peripheral characters too. Fidel, the next door neighbor, and Sanchez, the gruff but lovable building super, which I never really did much with those characters, but most of the focus was on Quentin and Marcus and Vanetta and Sean from time to time. Since this was way before I had any type of computer or iPad or any kind of software whatsoever, this was all done old school style drawing with pen and ink on Bristol board, with sometimes, if I was lucky, later on I would have Zip-A-Tone. And the strips that are in the book, you can see at the time I was experimenting with marker and Zip-Tone and different types of shading techniques. Had to get really creative without the computer. The majority of the strips in this issue are the ones that feature Quentin running for city councilman. I think that was the most fun I had the whole time doing that strip. Life in the Big City was the Quentin runs for city councilman series, because I was just like kind of pulling it out of my ass. I had no end game in mind, but hey, wouldn't it be funny if Quentin ran for city councilman? And then it turned into this whole thing where I made it about this kind of like a cabal that runs the city, and Quentin was up against the guy who was being backed by literally the man. And he was invited to the man's headquarters, and it's this whole thing with the scandal involving the incumbent in Quentin's district, and it just became like it had a life of its own after a while. And the way it wrapped up was I was pretty happy with it, actually. By that point, I was pretty much I had hit my stride with Life in the Big City. That was in its golden times right there, because not long after that, because of that very storyline, I had a falling out with the newspaper, which was like one of these newspapers that I think it was sold by homeless people in Chicago, and the people that ran it at the time, they didn't like my thing. So after that, we fell out of favor, and I just moved on and just started doing the strip for my own enjoyment. there was a time after that I was actually in discussions with the head of several heads actually of newspaper syndicates, just as a weekly strip, and I had a body of work to use as a resume. And one of the heads of the syndicate, I had several conversations with him, and on the phone, and we corresponded by letters many times, and it was really close. He told me there was just something missing from the strip, and at the time I didn't see it, but now I can look back and see that, yeah, I can see what was missing, because at the time it was I was at a very kind of I say dark place in my life, or I should say like it was kind of a place where I couldn't see certain things. So I would probably think that at that time I was putting too much of my own life into the strip and not being objective enough. I look back on it now as like, oh, okay, that happened for a reason. But it was really close for a while that I thought I was going to get syndicated, and then the events happened in my life, and I just I literally put the strip on hold for years after that. Eventually, I self-published some of my favorite strips, all the ones from that Quentin Runs for Office series, and some of the best ones that came afterwards. And I put that on my Alternative City Shop store, and the link for that is down below. I'm going to do an introduction video for all the books that I've published and all the strips that I've done. I just want to start with Life, because, or LITBC as I refer to it now, because that was the one that really got things going as far as saying, hey, I can do this as a cartoonist, and it started me on actually being comfortable with being and learning how to publish my work. It's nice if you get picked up by a syndicate, or if a big publisher publishes your book, but you can always self-publish stuff yourself. And now, with the age of the internet, this was like way before the internet age when I got started with Life. Right now, you don't need anything. You can worst case publish on Facebook or Instagram. You can publish on the internet almost anywhere now. So thanks for stopping by and watching this, and helping me relive the genesis of one of my favorite comic strips. So I'll see you guys next time. Hey, don't forget to subscribe and leave a thumbs up.